Greetings, everyone. This is Brooke, and I'm cleaning my desk. And in the process of cleaning my desk, I found a few hard copy pages from the first Trent Allegan work that I did, which the first Trent Allegan work was about him as a vigilante coming out of retirement. And all I know is it has my name in the upper corner. Also, I do have a document cam, but I don't have that ready yet. I actually have it over here. So I will be using this for future streams. Use something like this for when I was tutoring. So excited, but didn't quite have it ready yet. I was like, I can do that for another stream. I just started reading. I found this. I'm sorting stuff up to different shelves now. Cleared off a lot of shelves above my computer. I have what is a case that my my dad built to hold comic books that now is used as shelving. It goes across two filing cabinets. Anyways, let's get into the reading. This is written back around 2008. I want to acknowledge I needed to come up with the villain is a super speedster. Not going to give, I'll probably give some context as we go. The first thing to know, the villain is a super speedster. I was trying to come up with the name of a super speedster villain name. And I was like, people that are fast or light on their feet, let's go with Lightfoot. I'm not going to change the name right now, but fast forward 12 years, however many, 10 years plus, and Lori Lightfoot is the mayor of Chicago. Pure coincidence. I swear that a supervillain in Chicago, in my Chicago-based book, has the same name as the mayor. Let's admit that Lightfoot sounds a lot more like a supervillain name than Daly. All right. So, and then we got Trent Allegan and so Lightfoot's super fast. Trent and might have some other things going on. We don't entirely. That's the only thing that we definitely have confirmed. Trent Allegan is super strong and relatively invulnerable. And then we have Adrian, who is I don't think we'll be using their superhero names a ton, but they are Adrian is bipolar. He can go from being invulnerable to super fast, depending on if he's depressed or manic, and he can kind of merge the two, but not consistently use both at once. Very kind of plot hole-ish, depending on how you look at it. But then again, that's kind of how superhero powers operate. So this is a fight in downtown Chicago. There's going to be reference to a whole bunch of other people. I'm not sure the last time I read this, like probably 10 years ago. So I kind of dropped it as thesis material to do Trent getting started as a superhero rather than this is kind of the initial story was someone coming out of retirement and what would cause them to do that. So let's have some fun. It's gonna be hard to read. I'm sorry. The hyper drama. The hyper drama. All right. And then there's like stuff like notes in here where I want to say when I first wrote it, I was not really the best. And I bolded stuff versus not bolding stuff. So all right, here we go. So I don't even know where the first like 3 pages are. Oh, actually we have them here. Is this the where's page 3? I have pages 1 and 2. No, where's page 3? Well, that's annoying. Oh well, I guess I can just read. So this is from in class start 9:30:08 page 1 and in class start 9:2:01. So I guess I kind of wrote some of this backwards, went back and filled stuff in. This was turned into Randy Albers, amazing teacher who was the chair of the department at Columbia College Chicago at the time, on 10/17. So I could probably go find what the missing page is. Let's check real quick. Oh, 08. Um, I look at the titles of these documents. I'm just kind of like, not those. Um, well, I don't have. All right, this would probably. I don't have proper. Oh, only thing is I don't have like Word document on my computer or like Microsoft. I'll find it later. We'll fill in the gaps. All I know is page 4 started spicy enough. All right. So, yeah, I need to get a word processor on my computer. Oh, it's frustrating. Let's see if I can just open it up in a Google Doc real quick. File upload. Got them on my desktop. I'm inside of summer break. Let's do this. Nope, that would not be the right one. I need to look from 9:30. Well, that's from the in-class start. That's annoying. Oh well, I guess we'll just go with it. Sorry for the wait. If you're checking this out, because no one's watches my live streams yet. Reality rolled out behind and in front of me, and it was written on a tapestry just like the ones that survived Japan's Edo period. It stretched up Dearborn and over the Chicago River and south into the horizon and beyond the South Loop. I was standing upright, my shoulders ached, my fists throbbed, and my feet was the battered mess of Lightfoot. To my side, Adrian. This is very, like, I look at this, and none of the book is first person, and here we go. I started writing in class, and it's first person. That creates all sorts of options. I was standing there on Dearborn, but I was also turning the corner at 37th. I was on the east end of the block at 37th near my house, and I was walking in the front door. I was in the front door, and I was stepping onto the orange line, but I was dropping Lightfoot's body at the feet of the police officers. While I was doing that, I was at Madison's doorstep, and Peter and Emily wouldn't come to the door to see me. I'm not sure who Madison is off the top of my head. Trent, hey Trent. Adrian's hand flashed through my vision. What are you doing? I wasn't there. I was in my future. I saw Hannah. It doesn't matter anymore. My thoughts, my consciousness had somehow pulled up anchor, and I was no longer in one place in time. I was in my future. From that future, I was in the past. Back to that moment of Dearborn, and all the way back to the moment I met Hannah, and before that even. So then we have like a page break for ongoing material, starting with a turn in last assignment. So this is interesting because like there's so much going on here that is just mind-boggling for me. Having written, like, who was I? I wrote this. I would have been 25 years old. I hadn't even met my wife yet. And so I look at this and it says that moment when I met Hannah, and before then, I don't even know if I'd written like a meeting of when he met Hannah. Oh my gosh, I could do a documentary just on like the process of putting all this stuff together. And I honestly, I at least find it really interesting. I want to say other people might be somewhat intrigued because of there's a level of bizarro world that kind of happened. So anyways, we'll continue. So the reporter, who's going to be mentioned here, is a kind of superpowered reporter who can stream her like live consciousness or whatever she's seeing. She can stream directly to the television. This would have been before really kind of like online streaming, but either way, like the same sort of thing. So she's actually broadcasting everything that's going on while she's there. The reporter's broadcast filled the Bentley. The windows were rolled down. The valet's head rested in his hand. Oh, I forgot about the valet. Oh my gosh. The valet is someone who could just kind of walk into any valet shop, any sort of like garage, and just walk out with whatever sort of car. That was just his kind of gimmicky superpower. And the commuter has the power to. When I've done a lot more development with the commuter. Commuter just kind of follows his gut and knows where he's supposed to go, and that's how he gets there. It's kind of if you took commuting and turned it into a superpower, that's how I saw it. So he doesn't necessarily know where he's going. It's kind of like the Holy Spirit is his navigator. So the reporter's broadcast filled the Bentley. The windows were rolled down. The valet's head rested in his hands. The tourist's fingers drummed on the roof. Tourist, a worldwide version of like the commuter. So they're all in the same car. The tourist's fingers drummed on the roof. The commuter was leaned forward in his seat, his hands fastened to the steering wheel. They soared down Kedzie. They listened since leaving the warehouse. The broadcast had ended their discussion as to what had happened to the small Fedora army in the warehouse. So pretty much all of they had been in this warehouse and everyone got teleported away except for the good guys. I've been watching this whole time, but I think that I missed something. The reporter's words came over the radio faster than the front runner of the Kentucky Derby. Oh, oh. It's like I picture it. It's like I see it, I hear it, but so over the top. Go me. A police officer came out of nowhere, unloaded two different pistols into Lightfoot, and they had been sparring since the bullets ran out, and right on top of Stone's body, lying between their feet. The three men in the car could barely keep up with her. So Stones is actually the original name that I had for Trent, who is now the crossing guard. All right, so then I'm missing a page. And this is where I picked up and started reading this. I'm gonna try to get through. I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna get through this. It's all in bold. This first paragraph. Hitting Lightfoot was like hitting a sheet of ruled paper. It was as if it wasn't real. He wasn't there. Lightfoot was though. But Trent was too caught up in his emotional brawl to recognize that when bullets had no effect on Lightfoot, his own gloved fists hit Lightfoot like wrecking balls. His punches were stronger than any other hero's, and he didn't even realize it. Now we got the regular. Trent Allegan's left hook collided with the no man's land between Lightfoot's right cheek and ear. A glass pint of blood spewed from Lightfoot's mouth. His shoulders rolled back one after the other. His legs and hips bobbled his weight. His shoes were fit with club feet that only carried him backwards, as if he'd pounded shots and hopped off his bar stool to make a piss, but had no balance. Lightfoot's feet scrambled for the ground. His right took hold behind Adrian's head. Glass pint of blood is a good quantity descriptor, but that's a lot of blood. As far as like I can picture, like that's a glass pint. Maybe I meant a shot glass would make more sense. A glass pint of blood. Yeah, that's way too much. Like he just exploded his head. Oh, it was more instinct than intention for Adrian. His arms slid from his sides and fanned out as if doing a jumping jack while lying down. His arms ran across Lightfoot's leg and his hands latched on, as did a baby to a moving finger within sight and reach. Lightfoot glanced at his boot as if he'd stepped in bull manure. Is this back before I the first draft had no swearing whatsoever, or at least the first 200 pages, and then I was like, I need to finish this, and just kind of took off the reins. His arms closed in around his face as Trent wound up his haymaker. So for a second I was thinking that was Adrian, but no. Lightfoot glanced at his boot as if he'd stepped in bull manure. His arms closed around his face as Trent wound up his haymaker. Trent lowered his right shoulder and rotated his hip forward. His punch crammed Lightfoot's left side inward and up behind his punch crammed Lightfoot's left side inward and up behind his ribs. Lightfoot's face screamed without making a sound. Out of control, he pivoted to his left. He coughed, he winced, his arms flew upward. He was the child he'd sworn never to be again. So I look at the description of this. I had been reading. Do I have it in here? I don't see it. Yep. So the summer prior to this, I had been in Texas. So I'm pretty sure it was the one summer before this. I've been to summer a few times, and I'd actually had done a presentation. Maybe that was the summer before that on Robert E. Howard at some point. And this is his boxing stories, which has one of my favorite poems, The Ring. I mention this because I've been reading a lot of boxing stories, and he was known for writing boxing stories, like in a ton of pulp magazines, circa the 19 teens, around the World War I era. He also created Conan the Barbarian. So, and I'm assuming like just some of this language and how I was describing the positioning, like he lowers his shoulder and then kind of how he punches, and then the reaction, probably very much kind of inspired and taken from the technical side of, because Howard actually went and did boxing unprofessionally, but that's just kind of, they worked in the oil fields, a lot of the people that he was around. So he winced, his arms flew upward. He was the child he'd sworn never to be again. I've never written a distinct origin story for Lightfoot, but this here is obviously pointing towards the fact that he had gone through some level of abuse, which I had known. I just never gone into it in detail. Trent stepped up with his left foot, and with the image of Hannah's broken body resting in the car at the bottom of the ravine, laid out Lightfoot with a jaw-breaking southpaw uppercut. The hands holding Lightfoot's right leg in place couldn't keep their grip. It looked as if Lightfoot had been launched backwards from a trampoline. Oh, I can picture it, but I'm just like, there is something just raw. This just feels so entirely raw. Looked as if it, like, I get from the more serious laid out Lightfoot with the jaw breaking southpaw uppercut. I don't really need the jaw breaking. It should be evident that this could break someone's jaw up to this point. I would assume, but it's like, you're building up this. This is like the final confrontation of the book here. Spoilers. So it's like I could probably have a better description here, having read more boxing comics and other stuff. It looked as if Lightfoot had been launched backwards from a trampoline. Oh, his body hit the ground flat, and if he'd been conscious, it would have knocked the wind out of him. I suppose it could still knock the wind out of him, even if he's not conscious. I should be marking this up. I should be like, bro, what's wrong with you? All right, so now we got an line break. The officer's fist is raised above his head as Lightfoot's body lingers in the air. He's not going to get up from that. He's not going to get up from that one. So we just broke here to the reporter. That was all in quotations. I should probably say something. The words came through the radio. Something to. I know there's a transition, but to clarify who's talking before we get to the end. And I suppose if you're reading this and you're kind of in the know, you're familiar with these sorts of jumps, because I had these jumps through. I don't have chapters in this book now that I think about it. I just have parts. It's like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Very much like I'd also influenced, of course, by Richard Wright's Native Son, where there's no chapters. It's all coming together. The valet tilted to his feet to speak through the gap between the front seats. I can't picture who that cop can be. I didn't think that there was anyone in Chicago that could do something like that. The Bentley rolled over Cermak. The commuter cringed and gave a low cough as if he'd been stuck with a knife. His shoulders looked as if they couldn't support the weight of his head. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The tourist reached across the middle column for the wheel, working its way out of the commuter's fingers. The commuter's body slumped against the window. What the? The valet grabbed a handful of the commuter's sleeve and pulled him back into the center of the driver's seat. The car swerved towards oncoming headlights. All right, so for some reason the commuter just passed out. This is weird. So the commuter cringed and gave a little cough as if he'd been stuck by a knife. Okay. What the? The valet grabbed a handful of the commuter's sleeve and pulled him back into the center of the driver's seat. The car swerved toward oncoming headlights. The reporter's soundtrack carried on. I'm moving in. Something's happened to the policeman. Stone's body is showing more signs of life, but the officer that just saved the day is bent over with his hands on his knees, and his back is heaving up and down as he struggles to get his breath back. So the guy in the officer uniform is actually Trent, and the guy in Trent's uniform is actually someone else. This was there was this whole like setup. Just spoilers. The tourist's left hand rolled the wheel to the right, to the left, overcorrected to the right, and finally steadied the car as it slowed down. Cars were littered along the right shoulder of the street. He kept the Bentley going straight until they finally were going slow enough for him to cross the middle column and drive while sitting on top of the commuter. Why is there just sections that are bolded? I don't know. Trent's body went from being bent over with palms wrapped around his kneecaps to standing upright with his hands grasping his neck, to tipping backward and falling onto his back where he writhed on the ground, his face turning blue and throat blocked by an unseen force. Adrian sat up to Trent's legs, kicking his own. Trent flopped on the ground like a fish out of water. With a shove off the ground and mania thoughts racing, Adrian was on his feet, standing over Trent. Line break again. Get on the Stevenson. The commuter's eyes were closed, but he still knew exactly where he was. He was reclined in the passenger seat. Which way? The tourist drove the car over the river. East. So apparently they moved the commuter to the other seat. The reporter's heels clicked on the ground as she hurried over to Trent's side. I totally pictured, like, clicked her heels like Dorothy. Not Dorothy. Yeah, from Wizard of Oz. Two others emerged from the wreckage beyond Lightfoot's body. It was Mass Transit and Normal Man. There we go. The Mass Transit headed in Stone's direction, while Normal Man went for the Mime and Southpaw Express. He's choking. Someone, he's choking. Must be supposed to be he's choking. He choking. Someone, he's choking. It was moments like this that Adrian wished the Good Samaritan's Law hadn't frightened him away from renewing his lifeguarding certification. Don't you know what to do? This is weird. It says, "Don't you know what to do?" And then it says, "Gee, thanks, reporter." I think the quotation mark is supposed to be after the "Gee, thanks, reporter." Adrian could never remember the counts. How many pulmonary compressions to how many breaths? Wait, it's different if they're conscious and unconscious. His hand shook. Trent's thrashing cooled. Line break. Exit on Western. Line break. Mime, mime. Normal Man shook him. We need a miracle. Come on. The effect of the soft paw still had too great an indentation on the mime's face. I don't think I mean indentation. Did I bold stuff because I wanted to change it later? Trent's hands relaxed. They fell at the rest of his throat. Do something, Stones. The reporter pushed Adrian's shoulder as he was hunched over. Out of the way. Mass Transit stepped in and boxed out Adrian so that Transit was on top of Trent. He kneeled down, scooted his legs back, and pressed his ear to Trent's chest. Well, the reporter knelt down, one knee on the ground, the other raised, legs together because she was wearing a skirt. Trent's heart was still beating. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call it right there. But just a little bit of fun. Kind of annoyed that I'm missing that page and that I have no way to open up these documents on my computer without putting them in Google Docs. But yeah, I was just caught up. The fact that the stuff was bolded, I don't know what. Just this description was so over the top. Hitting Lightfoot was like hitting a sheet of ruled paper. It was as if he wasn't real. He wasn't there. So it's like that gives me a lot of different images. I'm like, is it just because when you hit paper, you go through the paper bends? Is it because then I was like, was it because he's dodging at super speed? It says Lightfoot was though, but Trent was too caught up in his emotional brawl to recognize that when bullets had no effect on Lightfoot, his own gloved fists hit Lightfoot like wrecking balls. I don't like what does that even mean? His punches were stronger than any other heroes, and he didn't even realize it. So here's the thing. There's just a lot of contradictions happening here. It's like hitting a ruled sheet of paper. It was as if it wasn't real. He wasn't there. So like, I need more clarity. Maybe it's I'm missing the prior state, like the prior page is really throwing this off. Lightfoot was though, but Trent was too caught up in his emotional brawl. So Trent's like too conflicted about everything going on to recognize that bullets had no effect. That when bullets had no effect on Lightfoot. Okay, so it's the bullets weren't doing anything, but actually his fists were damaging him. I guess that's the point. Like it was all right. So his own gloved fists hit Lightfoot like wrecking balls, and I think that there just needs to be a little bit more clarity here, and will come through stronger. It just sounds so over the top. His punches were stronger than any other heroes, and he didn't even realize it. How does he measure this? Who is this overall narrator telling you these events? Anyways, that's where I'm gonna file this stuff. Just wanted to have some fun today. No one joined the stream, but I was kind of expecting that, but wanted to leave comments, enjoy. I'll probably put this up on locals, and I can probably upload the document once I get it up on locals or on Substack, just for this section. So, anyways, have an awesome day. This is Brooke breaking down his own pages this time.